My hands shook as I dialed Sarah's number for the third time that morning. At 73 years old, I never thought I'd feel this nervous about calling my own daughter. But after 5 lonely years without my husband Robert, finding love again with Harold felt like winning the lottery. The cream-colored wedding invitation sat on my kitchen table, still warm from the printer at the local copy shop.
Mom?
Sarah's voice came through the phone, sounding distracted. I could hear traffic in the background and what sounded like her boyfriend Derek talking to someone. Sarah, honey, I have wonderful news, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite my racing heart. Harold proposed last night, and we're getting married next month.
I want you to be my maid of honor.
The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. When Sarah finally spoke, her voice sounded flat and cold.
That's great for you, Mom. Really. But I can't come.
My stomach dropped like a stone.
What do you mean you can't come?
Sarah, this is my wedding day. I already have plans that weekend, she said, and I could hear her car door slam. Derek's turning 30, and I've been planning his surprise party for months. All our friends will be there, and I can't just cancel now. I stared at the calendar on my refrigerator, the red circle around the date blurring through sudden tears.
Your boyfriend's birthday party?
Sarah, I raised you by myself after your father died. I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. This is the most important day of my life since your father passed away.
Don't guilt-trip me, Mom, Sarah snapped.
You're being totally unfair expecting everyone to drop everything for your last-minute wedding. Besides, Derek only turns 30 once. The words hit me like a slap across the face.
Last minute?
Sarah, I've been dating Harold for 2 years.
You've met him dozens of times. Look, I have to go.
Derek's waiting for me at the restaurant.
We can talk about this later. Sarah, wait. But the line went dead.
I sat in my empty kitchen, holding the phone and staring at the wedding invitation. The elegant script suddenly looked blurry through my tears. After Robert died of cancer 5 years ago, Sarah had been my anchor. She'd helped me through the funeral, stayed with me during the worst nights, promised we'd always be there for each other. Now she was choosing a birthday party over my wedding. My neighbor Margaret knocked on the back door, probably seeing me through the window. She'd been my friend for 20 years, ever since she moved in next door with her husband Tom. Eleanor, you look like you've seen a ghost.
What's wrong?
I handed her the invitation with trembling fingers.
Sarah won't come to my wedding.
She says Derek's birthday party is more important.
Margaret's eyes widened.
She said what? Eleanor, that's terrible. Maybe she just needs time to think about it.
But I knew my daughter better than that.
When Sarah made up her mind about something, she stuck to it with the determination of a bulldog. She'd been that way since she was 5 years old, refusing to eat vegetables no matter how many times I explained they were good for her. The next morning, I tried calling again. This time Derek answered Sarah's phone.
Hey, Mrs. Thompson, he said in that smooth voice that always made me uncomfortable.
Sarah's in the shower, but she told me about your wedding thing. Congratulations, I guess. Could you please ask her to call me when she gets out? I said, trying to stay polite.
Sure thing.
Though between you and me, she's pretty stressed about my party. She's rented this amazing venue downtown and hired a DJ and everything.
It's going to be epic. Epic.
He was 30 years old and still used words like epic. When Sarah finally called back that afternoon, I'd spent hours rehearsing what to say. Sarah, please.
I'm begging you to reconsider. This isn't just any wedding.
It's my second chance at happiness after losing your father. Mom, you're being way too dramatic about this, she said, and I could hear her typing on her computer.
You've been married before. It's not like this is some once-in-a-lifetime thing.
The casual way she dismissed my feelings made my chest tight with anger. Your father would be ashamed of how you're acting right now. He always said family comes first, no matter what. Don't bring Dad into this. Sarah's voice turned sharp. He's been dead for 5 years, Mom.
And honestly?
I think you're making a huge mistake marrying Harold anyway. You barely know him, and he's probably just after your money. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Harold, who brought me flowers every Friday and held my hand during scary movies, who helped me fix my leaky faucet and never asked for anything in return. Harold, who cried when I told him about Robert and promised he'd never try to replace him, just loved me for who I was now.
How dare you? I whispered, my voice shaking with rage.
How dare you accuse Harold of being a gold digger when you don't even know him well enough to see what kind of man he is?
I know enough, Sarah shot back.
I know he moved in with you pretty fast after you started dating.
I know he doesn't have much money of his own.
And I know you're lonely enough to fall for whatever story he's telling you.
Each word felt like a knife in my heart.
This wasn't the daughter I'd raised. This wasn't the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, or the teenager who cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. This was someone I didn't recognize.
Fine, I said, my voice deadly calm.
If Derek's birthday party is more important than your mother's happiness, then I know exactly where I stand in your life.
Mom, don't be so.
I hung up the phone and sat in the silence of my kitchen. The wedding invitation still lay on the table, mocking me with its cheerful script. Outside, I could hear children playing in the neighborhood park, their laughter carrying on the autumn breeze. Margaret appeared at my back door again, this time carrying a casserole dish. I made your favorite tuna noodle casserole, she said gently. Tom's working late, so I thought maybe we could eat together and talk. Over dinner, I told Margaret everything. How Sarah had called Harold a gold digger, how she dismissed our wedding like it was just another party, how she'd made it clear that her boyfriend's birthday was more important than her mother's happiness.
You know what hurts the most?
I said, pushing the noodles around on my plate.
I spent 18 years putting her first.
When Robert was sick, I quit my better-paying job so I could take care of him and still be home when Sarah got out of school. When he died, I used his life insurance money to pay for her college instead of taking that trip to Europe I'd always dreamed about.
I've spent my whole adult life sacrificing for my family.
Margaret reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Eleanor, you're one of the most generous people I know.
Sarah's lucky to have you as a mother.
Then why doesn't she act like it?
I asked, my voice breaking.
That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Harold's gentle snoring beside me. He'd been so excited about the wedding, talking about our honeymoon plans and how happy he was to officially become part of my family. How could I tell him that my own daughter thought he was a fraud? Rolling over, I looked at the framed photo on my nightstand. It showed Sarah and me at her college graduation, both of us beaming with pride. She'd hugged me so tight that day, whispered, "Thank you for everything," in my ear. Where had that grateful, loving daughter gone? As dawn crept through the bedroom curtains, I made a decision that would alter everything between us forever. If Sarah wanted to treat me like I didn't matter, then maybe it was time to show her exactly what that choice would cost her. I reached for my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed. Margaret Chen, my attorney, had been handling my legal affairs for 20 years. She'd know exactly what I needed to do. The phone rang twice before Margaret's professional voice answered. Chen Law Office, this is Margaret. Margaret, it's Eleanor Thompson. I need to schedule an appointment as soon as possible. I want to make some significant changes to my will. Margaret Chen's law office smelled like old books and fresh coffee when I walked in 3 days later. The mahogany furniture and leather chairs made me feel important, like my problems mattered here. Margaret had been my lawyer since Robert and I bought our first house 30 years ago. She'd helped us through buying the bigger house when Sarah was born, handled Robert's estate when he died, and now she was about to help me make the biggest decision of my life. Eleanor, you sounded upset on the phone, Margaret said, adjusting her reading glasses as she settled behind her desk.
Tell me what's going on.
I pulled out my phone and showed her the text Sarah had sent that morning.
Look at this.
She sent me a picture of Derek's birthday cake with a message, "Sorry you'll miss the fun, Mom. Maybe next time pick a better date for your wedding." Margaret's eyebrows shot up as she read the message.
She actually wrote that?
She did. After everything I've done for her, she's mocking my wedding day. I set my purse down and folded my hands in my lap. Margaret, I want to remove Sarah from my will completely. Everything I plan to leave her, I want to go to Harold instead. Margaret leaned back in her chair, her expression serious. Eleanor, that's a substantial inheritance we're talking about. The house alone is worth over $400,000, plus your investments and savings.
Are you absolutely certain about this?
I nodded firmly. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Sarah has made it clear that Derek and his birthday parties are more important than her mother. If that's how she feels, then she can make her own way in the world. Let me get your current will from the file, Margaret said, walking to a tall filing cabinet. She pulled out a thick folder and spread the papers across her desk. According to this, Sarah inherits the house, your investment portfolio worth about $200,000, and all your personal belongings including your mother's jewelry collection.
All of it goes to Harold, I said without hesitation.
He's the only family I have left who actually cares about me.
Margaret put down her pen and looked at me carefully.
Eleanor, I've known you for 20 years. You're one of the most level-headed people I know. But this is a massive decision.
Have you talked to Harold about this? Harold doesn't need to know. This is between Sarah and me.
I pulled out a tissue and dabbed at my eyes. Margaret, you should have heard how she talked to me. She called Harold a gold digger, said he was only with me for my money. She accused me of being dramatic and unreasonable for wanting my own daughter at my wedding.
Margaret made notes on a yellow legal pad. And there's no chance she might change her mind about the wedding?
She sent me another text yesterday, I said, pulling out my phone again. She said Derek's party is at the same venue where they had their first date, and she's not going to ruin that memory for anyone. She actually used the word anyone, like my feelings don't matter at all.
That's remarkably thoughtless, Margaret admitted.
But Eleanor, have you considered that maybe she's scared? Sometimes people act poorly when they're afraid of losing someone they love.
I shook my head.
If she loved me, she'd be at my wedding.
It's that simple.
Margaret spent the next hour explaining all the legal details.
She talked about how the new will would be structured, what would happen to each piece of property, and how to make sure everything was legally binding.
The more we talked, the more determined I became. There's one more thing, I said as Margaret started typing up the new documents. I want to add a letter explaining my decision. I want Sarah to know exactly why I did this.
Are you sure that's wise?
Margaret asked. Sometimes those letters can cause more pain than healing. She needs to understand that choices have consequences, I said firmly. I've spent my whole life protecting her from the results of her selfish behavior. Maybe it's time she learned what happens when you take people for granted. While Margaret worked on the legal papers, I sat in the waiting room and wrote my letter to Sarah. The words came easily, like they'd been building up inside me for years. Dear Sarah, I began, by the time you read this, I'll be gone, and you'll be wondering why your inheritance went to Harold instead of you. The answer is simple. You showed me that Derek's birthday party was more important than your mother's happiness. You called the man I love a gold digger and dismissed my wedding like it was just another inconvenience in your busy social calendar. I paused, thinking about all the sacrifices I'd made for her over the years. I worked 2 jobs to pay for your college while other mothers were taking vacations and buying nice things for themselves. I used your father's life insurance money to pay your student loans instead of taking that trip to Paris we always talked about. I put your needs first for 32 years, and when I finally found love again, you couldn't even be bothered to show up. The letter grew longer as I poured out years of frustration and disappointment. I wrote about how she'd stopped calling regularly after she met Derek, how she'd cancelled our weekly lunch dates because she was too busy with her new boyfriend, how she'd made it clear that her own life was more important than maintaining our relationship. Harold, I continued, has shown me more kindness and respect in 2 years than you've shown me in the past 5. He brings me flowers every Friday, not because he has to, but because he knows they make me smile. He holds my hand during scary movies and helps me with home repairs without ever asking for anything in return. He's earned this inheritance by simply treating me like I matter. Margaret called me back into her office when the papers were ready. Eleanor, I've prepared everything according to your instructions. But I want to ask you one more time, are you absolutely certain about this? Once you sign these documents, they become legally binding. I looked at the papers spread across her desk. Harold's name appeared everywhere Sarah's name used to be. The house where I'd raised my daughter, the investments Robert and I had built together, the jewelry that had been passed down through 3 generations of women in my family. All of it would go to Harold when I died.
I'm certain, I said, picking up the pen.
Sarah made her choice when she chose Derek's birthday over my wedding.
Now I'm making mine.
As I signed each page, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness because I was essentially disowning my only child, but relief because I was finally standing up for myself after years of being taken for granted. I'll file these with the court tomorrow, Margaret said, gathering the papers.
And Eleanor?
I'll keep this completely confidential. No one will know about the change until after, well, until it becomes necessary. Walking out of Margaret's office, I felt like I was carrying a nuclear bomb in my purse. Sarah had no idea that her decision to skip my wedding had just cost her everything. She was probably at home right now, planning Derek's party menu or picking out decorations, completely unaware that her inheritance had just disappeared. My phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. "Mom, stop being so dramatic about this. Derek's party is really important to me, and you should understand that. P.S. Harold seems nice, but you should really think about a prenup." I stared at the message, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Even now, she was giving me advice about my relationship while refusing to support it. She wanted me to protect my assets from Harold with a prenup, but she had no problem expecting to inherit those same assets herself. That evening, Harold noticed I was quieter than usual during dinner. "Penny for your thoughts, sweetheart," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "Just thinking about the wedding," I said, which was partially true. "Are you excited?" His eyes lit up like a child's on Christmas morning. "I can't wait to marry you, Eleanor. I know Sarah's situation is difficult, but I'm sure she'll come around eventually." I squeezed his hand, knowing he was wrong. Sarah wouldn't come around, and by the time she realized what she'd lost, it would be too late. The wheels were already in motion, and there was no going back. "Harold," I said carefully, "if something ever happened to me, would you take care of my house? Keep it nice, maybe plant some flowers in the garden." He looked confused by the question. "Eleanor, you're going to be around for many more years. But of course I'd take care of everything that was important to you." I smiled, satisfied that I'd made the right choice. Harold would appreciate what I was leaving him. He'd take care of the house Robert and I had built together, tend the garden I'd planted with my own hands, and maybe even pass my mother's jewelry on to someone who would treasure it. Sarah, on the other hand, would probably sell everything and use the money for more parties with Derek. As I got ready for bed that night, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a woman who had finally learned to put herself first. It had taken 73 years, but I was finally standing up for my own happiness. The wedding was in 2 weeks. Sarah would miss it, just like she'd promised. But for the first time since our fight began, I wasn't devastated by her choice. I was ready to start my new life with Harold, knowing that my estate would go to someone who truly deserved it. The only question now was whether Sarah would ever realize what her selfishness had cost her. And honestly, I wasn't sure I cared anymore. Dark clouds hung over the botanical garden like a bad omen as I stood in the bridal suite, adjusting my mother's vintage pearl necklace one last time. The mirror reflected a 73-year-old woman in cream silk, but my eyes kept darting to the empty chair where Sarah should have been helping me get ready. Instead, Margaret sat there, trying her best to fill the role of mother of the bride and maid of honor all at once. "You look beautiful, Eleanor," Margaret said, fastening the tiny buttons on my dress sleeve. "Harold's going to cry when he sees you." I forced a smile, but my heart felt like it was breaking into 1,000 pieces. "I keep thinking she'll change her mind and walk through that door." The wedding planner knocked and peeked in. "Mrs. Thompson, we're ready whenever you are. Your guests are seated, and Harold looks very handsome waiting at the altar." As we walked toward the ceremony space, I could see Harold standing under the white arch, his silver hair perfectly combed, wearing the navy suit we'd picked out together. His son Michael had flown in from Seattle and stood beside him as best man. 25 close friends filled the white chairs, but the empty seat in the front row screamed louder than all their smiles combined. Harold's eyes filled with tears when he saw me walking down the aisle. He whispered, "Gorgeous," as I reached him, and for a moment, I forgot about Sarah's absence. This was my day, my second chance at love, and I deserved to be happy. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, "we are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Eleanor and Harold." Just as he asked if anyone objected to our marriage, I found myself holding my breath and glancing toward the garden entrance. Part of me still hoped Sarah would burst through the gates, apologizing and begging forgiveness. But the only sound was a robin singing in the oak tree above us. "You may now kiss the bride," the minister announced, and Harold's gentle lips met mine while our friends cheered. The photographer captured everything, but I knew these pictures would always remind me of the daughter who chose a birthday party over her mother's happiness. During the reception, Harold pulled me close for our first dance. "I love you, Mrs. Patterson," he whispered in my ear, using my new married name for the first time. "I'm sorry Sarah isn't here to share this with us." "I'm not," I lied, because the truth was too painful to admit. This is our day, and we're surrounded by people who actually care about us. But even as I danced with my new husband, my phone buzzed in my small purse. A text from Sarah made my blood run cold. "Hope you had a nice day, Mom. Derek's party was amazing. He loved his surprise. The DJ played until 2 a.m. and everyone said it was the best party they'd ever been to. Maybe we can grab lunch next week? Love you." The casual tone, like she just missed a regular dinner instead of my wedding, made me want to scream. She was bragging about how amazing Derek's party was while I was celebrating the most important day of my life without her. I showed the text to Harold, who shook his head sadly. "Eleanor, I'm so sorry. I know this hurts." "She's not sorry at all," I said, slipping the phone back into my purse. "She's actually proud of her choice. Look how she's bragging about the party being amazing and going until 2 a.m. Margaret's husband Tom approached us during the cake cutting. "Eleanor, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Sarah's making a huge mistake. You raised a wonderful daughter, but sometimes good kids make terrible choices." "Thank you, Tom," I said, but inside I was thinking that maybe Sarah wasn't as wonderful as I'd always believed. Maybe I'd been blind to her selfish nature for years, making excuses for behavior that was actually just plain cruel. The next morning, Harold brought me coffee in bed, a tradition he'd started months ago. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Patterson?" he asked with a gentle smile. "Different," I admitted. "Like I finally see things clearly for the first time." "What do you mean?" I sat up against the pillows, holding my warm mug. I've been making excuses for Sarah's behavior for years. When she canceled our weekly lunches, I told myself she was just busy with work. When she stopped calling regularly, I convinced myself that was normal for adults. But the truth is, she's been putting herself first for a long time, and I was too afraid to admit it. Harold took my hand. "Eleanor, you're one of the most loving mothers I've ever met. You sacrificed so much for Sarah after Robert died." "Maybe that was my mistake," I said quietly. "Maybe I made life too easy for her. She's never had to face real consequences for her actions." That afternoon, Sarah called like nothing had happened. "Mom, I'm so sorry I missed your wedding," she said, but her voice sounded fake, like she was reading from a script. "Derek's party ran really late, and I was exhausted yesterday. But I want to hear all about it." "You want to hear about my wedding?" I repeated, hardly believing what I was hearing. "Sarah, you missed the most important day of my life, and now you want me to describe it to you like it was a movie?" "Don't be like that, Mom. I said I was sorry. Derek's party was really important to me, and you know how much I love him." "More than you love me, apparently." Sarah's voice turned sharp. "That's not fair. I love you, but I have my own life now. I can't drop everything every time you want attention." Attention. She thought my wedding was about wanting attention. "Sarah, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Do you think I'm a good mother?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "Of course you are. You're the best mom ever." "Then why don't you treat me like I matter?" Long pause. "Mom, where is this coming from? You matter to me." "Do I?" "Because actions speak louder than words, and your actions tell me that Derek's birthday party was more important than supporting your mother on her wedding day." "God, Mom, you're being so dramatic about this. It was one day. You'll have plenty of anniversaries to celebrate." "One day." She thought my wedding was just one day. "Sarah, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I am done being treated like I don't matter. I am done being taken for granted. And I am done making excuses for your selfish behavior." "My selfish behavior?" Her voice rose. "Mom, you're the one being selfish. You planned this wedding without asking anyone if the date worked for them. You just expected everyone to drop everything and show up." "I expected my daughter to show up," I said firmly. "I expected the person I raised and loved and sacrificed for to care enough about my happiness to be there when I needed her most." "Well, maybe your expectations were too high," Sarah shot back. "I'm not going to feel guilty for having my own priorities." The line went quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. "And honestly, Mom, I still think you're making a mistake with Harold. You barely know him, and he moved in with you pretty fast." "I'm just looking out for you." "No, you're not.
I said, my voice steady and calm. You're trying to make yourself feel better about abandoning me on my wedding day by pretending Harold is the problem. But Harold isn't the problem, Sarah. You are. Fine, she said, her voice full of anger. If you want to be mad at me for having my own life, go ahead. But don't expect me to apologize for loving my boyfriend. She hung up, leaving me staring at the phone in my hand. Harold appeared in the doorway, his face full of concern. That didn't sound like it went well. It didn't, I said, but I felt strangely calm. But I'm glad it happened. Now I know exactly where I stand with my daughter. That evening, I sat in my study looking at the family photos on my desk. Pictures of Sarah's graduation, her birthdays, holidays we'd spent together. In every single photo, I was the one organizing, planning, making sure everything was perfect for her. When had she ever done the same for me? Harold knocked on the doorframe. Eleanor, I found something while I was unpacking my books. I thought you might want to see it. He handed me a small leather journal. I kept a diary during my first marriage. I wrote about how important it was to prioritize the people you love, especially as you get older. I learned that lesson the hard way when my father died, and I hadn't spoken to him in months because I was too busy with my own life. I opened the journal and read Harold's neat handwriting from 15 years ago. Spent the day with Dad helping him fix his fence. He's getting older, and I realize I need to make more time for him. The work will always be there, but the people we love won't be. Your father was lucky to have you, I said, closing the journal carefully. I learned from my mistakes, Harold said, sitting in the chair across from my desk. I just wish Sarah could learn from hers before it's too late. It might already be too late, I said, thinking about the will sitting in Margaret Chen's safe. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way. Harold looked at me with concern. Eleanor, what aren't you telling me? I met his eyes, seeing the love and worry there. I'm telling you that I'm done being Sarah's doormat. I'm done sacrificing my happiness for someone who doesn't appreciate it. And I'm done pretending that her behavior is acceptable just because she's my daughter. What does that mean? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where we'd been married just 2 days ago. The flowers were still blooming, but I knew winter was coming. Just like it was coming for my relationship with Sarah. It means that some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt, I said quietly. And maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. 2 weeks after my wedding, Sarah showed up at my front door carrying a small gift bag and wearing the bright smile that used to melt my heart. She looked perfectly put together in her designer jeans and expensive boots, like she just stepped out of a magazine. But I could see through her fake cheerfulness now, and it made my stomach turn. Mom, I brought you and Harold a wedding present, she announced, breezing past me into the living room without waiting for an invitation. I know I'm a little late, but I wanted to find something special. I followed her, my jaw clenched tight. A little late? Sarah pulled out 2 white coffee mugs with Mr. and Mrs. written in gold script. I saw these at the mall and thought they were perfect for you too. Aren't they cute? I stared at the mugs, feeling my anger build like steam in a pressure cooker. You missed my wedding for Derek's birthday party, and you think coffee mugs make up for it? Her smile faltered slightly. Mom, they're really nice mugs. I paid $40 for them. $40. I repeated the words slowly, letting them sink in. Sarah, do you have any idea how much your absence cost me emotionally? Do you understand that I will never get another wedding day? Okay, I can see you're still upset about this, she said, sitting down on my couch like she owned the place. But Mom, you're being way too dramatic. It was just 1 day. You'll have plenty of anniversaries to celebrate. Just 1 day. There were those words again, like a knife twisting in my chest. Sarah, I gave you everything. When your father died, I worked 2 jobs to make sure you could go to college without student loans. I used his life insurance money to pay for your education instead of taking that trip to Europe I dreamed about. I sacrificed my own happiness for years to make sure you had every opportunity. Sarah rolled her eyes. Here we go with the guilt trip again. Mom, I'm 32 years old. I can't live my life trying to pay you back for being a parent. That was your choice. The coldness in her voice hit me like a slap. My choice? Sarah, everything I did was for you. And when I finally find love again, you can't even be bothered to show up for 2 hours. Look, I'm sorry you're upset, she said,
but her tone suggested she wasn't sorry at all. But Derek's party was really important to me. I'd been planning it for months, and all our friends were expecting me to be there. I couldn't just abandon him for your last-minute wedding. Last minute. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Sarah, I've been dating Harold for 2 years. You've met him dozens of times. How is that last minute? She waved her hand dismissively. You know what I mean. You didn't give us much notice about the actual wedding date. I gave you 6 weeks' notice. Whatever, Mom. The point is, Derek needed me there. It was his 30th birthday, and I'm his girlfriend. Of course I was going to be at his party. I walked to my desk and pulled out a copy of my new will. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Sarah, since Derek and his birthday parties are more important than your mother, I have something to tell you. She looked at the papers in my hand with curiosity, not alarm. What's that? This is my new will. I've removed you as my beneficiary. The house, my investments, my mother's jewelry collection, everything goes to Harold now. The color drained from Sarah's face as she snatched the papers from my hands. You can't be serious. This is my inheritance. This is Dad's house. It was your inheritance, I corrected, my voice deadly calm. Until you showed me exactly how much your family means to you. Sarah's shock quickly turned to panic as she read through the legal documents. Mom, you can't do this. I'm your daughter. This house has been in our family for 20 years. And you would have inherited it if you'd acted like family instead of treating me like an inconvenience. This is insane. Sarah jumped up from the couch, waving the will in the air. You're punishing me for missing one event? One day out of my entire life. That one day was the most important day of my life since your father died, I said, my voice rising to match hers. And you chose a birthday party over being there for me. It wasn't just any birthday party. Sarah screamed. It was Derek's 30th. We'd been planning it for months. The venue, the catering, the DJ, everything was already paid for. And my happiness meant nothing compared to your party planning? Sarah's face twisted with anger. Your happiness? What about my happiness? What about the fact that I've been with Derek for 3 years and this party was important to us? More important than your mother's wedding? Yes. The word exploded out of her mouth before she could stop it. Yes, it was more important. Derek is my future, Mom. He's the man I'm going to marry and have kids with. You're just lonely and desperate, marrying some old man you barely know. The words hung in the air like poison. I felt something break inside my chest, something that could never be repaired. Get out, I said quietly. Mom, I didn't mean. Get out of my house. My voice was still calm, but Sarah must have heard the finality in it because she took a step back. Fine, she said, her voice shaking with rage. But this isn't over. I'm going to fight this will. I'll take you to court if I have to. Go ahead, I said, walking to the front door and opening it. But you'll lose. I'm mentally competent, and I have every right to leave my property to whoever I choose. Sarah stormed past me, then turned back from the porch. You know what, Mom? Maybe this is for the best. Maybe I'll finally be free from your constant guilt trips and manipulation. Maybe you will, I agreed. And maybe I'll finally be free from an ungrateful daughter who thinks the world revolves around her. She got in her car and slammed the door so hard I was surprised the window didn't break. As she drove away, I noticed Harold standing in the kitchen doorway, his face pale with shock. Eleanor, I heard shouting. Are you all right? I closed the front door and leaned against it, feeling exhausted. I'm fine, Harold. Better than fine, actually. But the things she said. He shook his head. Calling you desperate and lonely. That was cruel. Yes, it was. And now I know exactly who my daughter really is. Harold walked over and took my hands in his. Eleanor, I don't want to be the reason you and Sarah stop speaking. Family is important. Family is important, I agreed. But family works both ways. She's made it clear that I'm not her family anymore. I'm just an obstacle to her happiness. Maybe she'll calm down and apologize. I shook my head. Did you hear what she said, Harold? She said Derek's birthday party was more important than my wedding. She said it out loud, with no shame at all. That's not something you apologize for, that's something you mean. That evening, my phone rang constantly. Sarah called 12 times, but I didn't answer. She left voicemails that started angry and gradually became more desperate. Mom, pick up the phone. We need to talk about this. Mom, I'm sorry I yelled at you. But you have to understand how important Derek's party was to me. Mom, please. I didn't mean what I said about you being desperate. I was just angry. Mom, you can't really mean to cut me out of your will. I'm your only child. By the 10th message, she was crying. Mom, please don't do this. I love you, and I need you to love me back. I made a mistake, but I'm still your daughter. Harold listened to the messages with me, his face growing sadder with each one. Eleanor, she sounds genuinely upset. She's upset about losing her inheritance, I said. Not about hurting me. How can you be so sure? I played the messages again, counting carefully. Harold, she apologized for yelling at me, but not for missing my wedding. She said she made a mistake, but not that she was wrong to choose Derek's party. She's sorry about the consequences, not about her choices. Harold was quiet for a long moment. You're right. I hear it now. The next morning, Sarah sent a text. Mom, I talked to a lawyer. What you've done might not be legal. I could contest the will and probably win. Dad always intended for me to inherit the house. I showed the text to Harold, who shook his head in disgust. Now she's threatening you with lawyers? And lying about your father's intentions, I added. Robert never discussed inheritance with Sarah. She's desperate enough to make things up. What are you going to do? I looked at my phone, then at Harold's concerned face, then out the window at the garden where we'd been married. I'm going to do nothing. Sarah has shown me exactly who she is, and I believe her. Eleanor, are you sure about this? Once you cut ties with her, it might be impossible to repair the relationship. I thought about the coffee mug sitting on my counter, about Sarah's fake smile and casual dismissal of my feelings, about her threat to take me to court. Harold, some relationships can't be repaired because they were never real to begin with. I spent 32 years thinking I had a loving daughter, but what I really had was someone who took everything I gave and never learned to give anything back. That's a hard truth to face. Yes, it is. But it's also freeing. I deleted Sarah's text without responding. I'm done being her emotional punching bag. I'm done sacrificing my happiness for someone who doesn't appreciate it. And I'm done pretending that her behavior is acceptable just because she's my daughter. Harold pulled me into a hug. I love you, Eleanor. And I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I love you too, I said, feeling lighter than I had in years. And I'm proud of us for building something real together. As we stood there holding each other, I realized that losing Sarah hurt, but it also opened up space in my life for people who actually cared about me. People like Harold, who brought me flowers and held my hand during scary movies. People like Margaret, who helped me get dressed on my wedding day when my daughter couldn't be bothered to show up. Maybe blood doesn't always make family. Maybe sometimes you have to choose your family, and sometimes your family has to choose you back. Sarah had made her choice. Now I had made mine. Sarah's car screeched into my driveway at 7 in the morning, music blasting so loud it woke up the whole neighborhood. She slammed the door and marched to my front porch, her hair messy and her eyes red from crying. Behind her, Derek stumbled out of the passenger seat, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Mom, we need to talk right now, Sarah shouted, pounding on my door so hard I thought she might break it. I've been up all night thinking about this, and what you're doing is completely unfair. I opened the door in my bathrobe, Harold standing behind me with a concerned look on his face. Sarah, it's 7 in the morning. What are you doing here? I'm here to fix this mess, she said, pushing past me into the living room. Derek followed, mumbling an embarrassed sorry as he passed. Sarah spun around to face me, her hands on her hips. Mom, I've been talking to Derek about everything, and we both agree that you're being totally unreasonable. Cutting me out of your will over one missed event? That's crazy. One missed event? I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. Sarah, it was my wedding day. It was Derek's birthday first, she shot back. We planned his party months before you even told us about your wedding. What were we supposed to do? Cancel everything? Derek shifted uncomfortably. Sarah, maybe we should. No. Derek. She needs to hear this. Sarah turned back to me, her voice rising. Mom, I've been a good daughter my whole life. I visited you after Dad died. I helped you clean out his things. I call you every week. But apparently, missing one party means I'm a terrible person. You didn't miss a party, Sarah. You missed my wedding to attend a party. Same thing, she exploded. It's all just parties and celebrations and social events. Why is your party more important than Derek's? Harold stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. Sarah, a wedding isn't just a party. It's a sacred ceremony where two people promise to love each other forever. Your mother wanted to share that moment with you. Sarah laughed bitterly. Oh, great. Now Harold's going to lecture me about family values. How convenient. Sarah, that's enough, I said, my patience finally snapping. Harold has been nothing but kind to you, and you're treating him like garbage. Kind to me? Sarah's voice went up an octave. Mom, he's been trying to turn you against me since day one. He's the one who convinced you to cut me out of your will. Harold doesn't even know about the will, I said, then immediately regretted it. Harold's face went pale. Eleanor, what does she mean? Sarah's eyes lit up with triumph. Oh, he doesn't know? Harold, your new wife changed her entire will to leave everything to you instead of me. Congratulations, you just won the lottery. I felt my world crumbling as Harold stared at me in shock. Eleanor, is this true? Harold, I can explain. You changed your will without telling me? His voice was barely a whisper. You made me the beneficiary of your entire estate? I wanted to protect what I've worked for, I said desperately. I wanted it to go to someone who actually cares about me. But Eleanor, I don't want your money. I married you because I love you, not because I wanted your inheritance. Sarah clapped her hands together. See? Even Harold thinks this is crazy. Mom, you've lost your mind. No, I haven't, I said, but I was starting to doubt myself. Harold looked hurt and confused, and I hated that Sarah had been the one to tell him about my decision. Derek finally spoke up. Maybe we should all just calm down and talk about this rationally. Stay out of this, Derek, I snapped. This is between Sarah and me. Actually, it's between all of us now, Sarah said smugly. Because I've been doing some research, and what you've done might not be legal. She pulled out her phone and started reading from it. According to this website, if someone changes their will due to undue influence or emotional manipulation, the courts can overturn it. And Mom, cutting me out because I missed one event? That sounds like emotional manipulation to me. Sarah, I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm protecting my assets from someone who doesn't appreciate them. We'll see what a judge thinks about that, she said, her voice cold and calculating. I've already called a lawyer. His name is David Martinez, and he specializes in will contests. He thinks I have a very strong case. My blood turned to ice. You're actually going to take me to court? If that's what it takes to get my inheritance back, then yes. Mom, Dad worked his whole life to build this estate. He would be disgusted to know you're giving it all to some man you've only known for 2 years. Your father would be disgusted by your behavior, I shot back. He would be ashamed to see how selfish and entitled you've become. Entitled? Sarah's face turned red with rage. I'm entitled to my own inheritance. That money was supposed to take care of me and my future children. What future children? I asked. Sarah, you're 32 years old and you're not even engaged. You're fighting for money to fund a fantasy life that might never happen. Derek cleared his throat. Actually, we've been talking about getting engaged soon. Sarah beamed at him. See? Derek and I are planning our future together. We're going to need that money to buy a house and start a family. You're going to need my money to start your life with Derek? I asked, incredulous. Sarah, what happened to being independent? What happened to making your own way in the world? Mom, nobody can afford to buy a house these days without help. Derek and I have been saving up, but we need more money for a down payment. So this is really about money, I said, feeling sick to my stomach. You're not fighting for your inheritance because you love me or because you think I'm being unfair. You're fighting because you need the money. I need the money that's rightfully mine, Sarah corrected. Mom, I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for what Dad intended me to have. Your father never intended for you to treat me like an ATM machine, I said quietly. He never intended for you to choose birthday parties over family loyalty. Family loyalty? Sarah laughed harshly. What about your loyalty to me? I'm your daughter, Mom. I'm your flesh and blood. Harold is just some man you met at a senior center. Harold is my husband, I said firmly. And he's shown me more love and respect in 2 years than you've shown me in the past 5. Because he wants your money. No, because he's a good man who knows how to treat people he cares about. Harold, who had been standing silently through this whole argument, finally spoke up. Eleanor, I need to talk to you alone. Harold, not now. Yes, now. His voice was firm in a way I'd never heard before. Sarah, Derek, I need you to leave. Eleanor and I need to have a private conversation. Sarah crossed her arms. We're not going anywhere until this gets resolved. Yes, you are, Harold said, walking to the front door and opening it. This is our house, and I'm asking you to leave. Fine, Sarah said, grabbing Derek's arm. But Mom, this isn't over. You're going to hear from my lawyer very soon. After they left, Harold and I sat in the living room in heavy silence. I could see the hurt in his eyes, and I knew I'd made a terrible mistake by not telling him about the will. Eleanor, why didn't you tell me what you'd done? I looked down at my hands, feeling ashamed. I was afraid you'd try to talk me out of it. Of course I would have tried to talk you out of it. His voice was louder than I'd ever heard it. Eleanor, I don't want to be the reason you and Sarah stop speaking. I don't want your money. I married you because I love you, not because I wanted to inherit your estate. I know that, Harold. That's exactly why I wanted you to have it instead of Sarah. But you should have told me. We're supposed to be partners now. We're supposed to make decisions together. He was right, and I knew it. I'm sorry, Harold. I was so angry at Sarah that I wasn't thinking clearly. Are you thinking clearly now? I looked around the living room, at the family photos Sarah had mocked, at the coffee mug she'd brought as an insult disguised as a gift. I don't know anymore. Everything feels so complicated. Eleanor, I want you to promise me something. What? Promise me that you'll really think about whether this is worth destroying your relationship with Sarah forever. Because once you go to court, once lawyers get involved, there might be no going back. I nodded, but deep down I wondered if there was already no going back. Sarah had threatened to take me to court, accused Harold of being a gold digger, and made it clear that our relationship was only valuable to her as long as it came with money attached. Harold, what if she's right? What if I am being manipulated by my emotions? Eleanor, you're one of the smartest, most level-headed people I know. You're not being manipulated. You're hurt, and you're angry, and you're trying to protect yourself from more pain. But what if the courts don't see it that way? Harold took my hand. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But right now, I need you to decide, are you doing this because you truly believe it's right, or are you doing it because you're angry? I thought about his question for a long time, staring out the window at the garden where we'd been married just months ago. The flowers were starting to wilt now, and I wondered if that was a sign of things to come. I'm doing it because I'm tired of being taken for granted, I said finally. I'm tired of sacrificing my happiness for someone who doesn't appreciate it. And I'm tired of pretending that Sarah's behavior is acceptable just because she's my daughter. Then you have your answer, Harold said gently. But Eleanor, whatever happens next, we face it together. No more secrets, no more decisions made in anger. We're a team now. I squeezed his hand, grateful for his support but terrified of what was coming. Sarah had declared war, and I had a feeling things were about to get much worse before they got better. 6 months later, I was in Dr. Peterson's office getting the results of my annual checkup when everything fell apart. The beeping of the heart monitor filled the small room as she studied my test results with a frown that made my stomach drop. Eleanor, I'm seeing some irregularities in your EKG, Dr. Peterson said, her voice gentle but serious. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but we need to talk about making some lifestyle changes. What kind of changes? I asked, Harold squeezing my hand as we both tried to process what she was saying. Less stress, more rest, and we'll need to monitor your heart more closely. Eleanor, have you been under any unusual pressure lately? I almost laughed. The legal battle with Sarah had been raging for months, with lawyers' letters arriving weekly and court dates looming. Derek had even started a social media campaign claiming I was a bitter old woman trying to steal his girlfriend's inheritance. The stress was eating me alive. You could say that, I admitted. Dr. Peterson nodded knowingly. Family conflicts can be particularly hard on the heart. Eleanor, at your age, chronic stress can be dangerous. I want you to seriously consider whether whatever you're fighting about is worth your health. Driving home, Harold was quieter than usual. Eleanor, maybe the doctor has a point. Maybe it's time to make peace with Sarah. Make peace? I stared at him in disbelief. Harold, she's been telling people I'm senile. Her lawyer sent a letter demanding I undergo a mental competency exam. She's trying to have me declared unfit to make my own decisions. I know, sweetheart. But look what this fight is doing to you. You're not sleeping, you're not eating well, and now your heart is showing signs of stress. That evening, I sat in my study looking at the stack of legal papers on my desk. Sarah's lawyer was good, and he'd found every possible angle to contest the will. They were claiming I was mentally incompetent, that Harold had unduly influenced me, that I was acting out of spite rather than sound judgment. My phone rang, and I was surprised to see Margaret's name on the caller ID. Eleanor, I hope I'm not calling too late, my neighbor said. I was just thinking about you and wondered how you were holding up. Honestly, Margaret, I'm exhausted. This legal battle is taking everything out of me. I can imagine. Eleanor, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you remember what you used to tell me about Sarah when she was little? You always said she was the light of your life, that you'd do anything for her. I felt tears prick my eyes. That was before she chose Derek's birthday party over my wedding. That was before she called me bitter and senile. I know, honey. But I also remember the little girl who used to help you bake cookies for the church fundraiser. The teenager who cried when you had to work late because she missed you. Are you sure that girl is completely gone? I didn't answer because I wasn't sure anymore. The Sarah I'd raised seemed like a different person from the one who was trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. 2 days later, Sarah called me for the first time in months. Her voice sounded different, smaller, less confident. Mom, I heard about your heart problems from Harold. Are you okay? How did you talk to Harold? I asked, surprised. I ran into him at the grocery store. Mom, he looked really worried about you. I'm fine, Sarah. Just some minor irregularities. Minor irregularities can be serious at your age, she said, and for a moment she sounded like the caring daughter I remembered. Mom, I've been thinking about everything that's happened, and I want you to know that I never wanted you to get sick over this. But you're still going to court? Long pause. Mom, I don't know what else to do. I feel like I'm losing you, and I don't know how to fix it. You could start by dropping the lawsuit, I suggested. I can't. I've already spent thousands of dollars on lawyers, and Derek thinks. Derek thinks. I interrupted. Sarah, this is about you and me. What does Derek have to do with it? He's been helping me understand my legal rights. He says I shouldn't let you manipulate me with guilt. Manipulate you? I felt my blood pressure rising. Sarah, I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm protecting my assets from someone who's shown me that money is more important than family. That's not true, Mom. I love you more than money. Then prove it. Drop the lawsuit and accept that I have the right to leave my property to whoever I choose. I can't do that, she said, her voice breaking. Mom, I need that inheritance. Derek and I are planning to get married, and we need the money for a house. You need my money to get married? We need your money to start our life together. Mom, house prices are crazy now. We can't afford anything decent without help. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of 32 years of parenthood. Sarah, when did you become someone who expects other people to fund your dreams? I'm not expecting anything. I'm asking for what's rightfully mine. And what makes it rightfully yours? The fact that you're my daughter? Because being my daughter means showing up for important moments in my life, not choosing birthday parties over weddings.
God, Mom, we're back to that again? It was one day. It was my wedding day.
I shouted, my chest starting to hurt. It was the most important day of my life since your father died, and you chose a party over being there for me.
I made a mistake, okay? I admit it.
But does one mistake really mean I should lose everything?
It wasn't one mistake, Sarah.
It was a pattern of behavior that showed me exactly where I stand in your life.
That's not fair.
Life isn't fair, I said, my voice getting weaker as the chest pain increased.
But it's honest.
And honestly, Sarah, you've shown me that you only value our relationship when it benefits you.
Mom, are you okay? You sound strange.
I was pressing my hand against my chest, trying to ease the sharp pain that was spreading down my arm.
I'm fine. No, you're not.
I can hear it in your voice.
Mom, do you need me to come over?
I need you to stop trying to take my money and start acting like the daughter I raised.
I am the daughter you raised.
Sarah's voice was desperate now.
Mom, I love you. I've always loved you.
But I also love Derek, and I want to build a life with him.
Why can't you understand that?
Because you've never once asked me to understand, I said, sitting down heavily in my chair. You've never tried to see things from my perspective. You've just demanded that I accept your choices and support your dreams, even when those choices hurt me.
Mom, please. Can we just talk about this in person?
I'll come over right now.
No, Sarah. I'm tired of talking. I'm tired of fighting.
And I'm tired of being treated like an ATM machine instead of a mother.
That's not how I treat you.
Then explain to me why you only call when you need something. Explain to me why you didn't come to my wedding but you expect me to fund your wedding. Explain to me why you're trying to have me declared mentally incompetent instead of accepting that I have the right to make my own decisions.
Sarah was crying now. Mom, I'm scared.
I'm scared that if I don't fight for my inheritance, I'll lose everything. And I'm scared that if I do fight for it, I'll lose you.
You've already lost me, Sarah.
You lost me the day you chose Derek's birthday party over my wedding.
Don't say that. Please don't say that. It's true.
The daughter I raised would never have made that choice.
I'm still that daughter.
Sarah sobbed. I'm still the little girl who used to help you bake cookies and who cried when you had to work late. I'm still the teenager who held your hand at Dad's funeral and promised I'd always be there for you.
Then where were you on my wedding day? I was wrong, okay? I was wrong, and I'm sorry. But Mom, I'm still your daughter.
I'm still the person who loves you more than anyone else in the world. I looked around my study, at the photos of Sarah's childhood that lined the walls. Pictures of birthday parties and Christmas mornings and graduation days. In every single photo, I was there, smiling and proud and completely devoted to her happiness. Sarah, I want you to listen to me very carefully.
I love you. I will always love you. But I don't like who you've become.
I don't like the person who thinks money is more important than family. I don't like the person who chooses birthday parties over weddings. And I don't like the person who tries to have her mother declared mentally incompetent when she doesn't get her way.
Mom, please.
I'm changing my will back, I said suddenly, the words coming out before I could stop them. I'm giving you your inheritance back. But I'm also giving half of the jewelry collection to Harold's granddaughter, because she's 3 years old and she already calls me Grandma Eleanor.
Sarah's crying stopped abruptly. What? You heard me. I'm tired of fighting.
I'm tired of being sick over this. And I'm tired of letting our relationship be destroyed by money.
Mom, are you serious?
I'm serious. But Sarah, I want you to promise me something in return.
Anything.
Promise me that you'll never take our relationship for granted again. Promise me that you'll give Harold a real chance, instead of seeing him as competition. And promise me that you'll remember that family means showing up for each other, even when it's inconvenient.
I promise, Mom. I promise all of that. And Sarah? One more thing. What?
When Derek breaks up with you, and he will, because men who let their girlfriends fight their battles for them always do, I want you to remember that your family will still be here.
Harold and I will still be here.
6 months later, Derek broke up with Sarah via text message, just like I'd predicted. And when she showed up at my door with red eyes and a broken heart, Harold was the one who made her tea and told her terrible jokes until she smiled. Sometimes the best families are the ones you choose to fight for, and sometimes the people you love have to learn hard lessons before they understand what really matters. But in the end, love wins. It always does.